It's been a few months since we've talked. If any of the three of you guys were at the Saratoga Comic-Con in April, we ended our panel with a firing.
We don't want you to miss a damn thing.
Bring it up close, guys. Bring it up front.
Starting all over for these guys. Okay, so one second. So my mother gave birth. And I asked my mother from time to time, how was the birth? And she said, well, there are good days and bad days. But I got to tell you, all right, thank you for coming, everybody. Let's leave room for
Yeah. Again, everybody in the back, just please make room for everybody. We have
Sir, if you walk out, I'm going to blow my fucking head off. You understand? You sit down and you leave. Do something else. I'm kidding. Please go. You're free.
But no, thank you everybody for coming. We really appreciate it. I know I personally have been looking forward to this all week. I know we're gonna have a good time talking, and I'm excited to be here. Thanks for coming.
It's basically, this is essentially two guys talking in an elevator and everybody else pretending that we're not on.
Yeah.
I have to justify this in my mind. I played to smaller audiences, believe it or not. That's life in the theater.
Yes, actually.
Yeah.
I have been to comic conventions with less people than there are here now.
Wow. That's just called reading a comic, isn't it?
That's just called hanging out with a bunch of nerds for the weekend. But no, thank you everybody for coming. I usually like to start off these panels. I like to treat these panels as not only like an entertainment kind of opportunity, but also a learning opportunity.
Right.
It's very rare that we get to sit down with somebody who has, achieved the dream. A lot of people have being in movies, TV, and all that.
We're going to start all over again.
Yeah.
So my mother gave birth.
Yeah.
So it was a difficult birth.
Rewind it back to step one, guys. Back to step one. But no, I usually like to start out by asking, how did you get started? But I think we would be doing a little bit of a disservice by that today. Only because as far as entertainment goes, especially currently right now, we are in a dead standstill.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, not thank you. I mean, because of the WGA and SAG-Aftra strike. And I don't mean to say thank you to that. I mean, it is a justified strike, in my opinion, just as someone who is an outsider in the business. Basically, that means there's nothing being made right now. No new movies, no new TV shows. Everything's just kind of at a standstill. Nobody's working.
It's not entirely true, unfortunately.
Yeah, actually, I should clarify. There are some people going back to work. I'm gonna try to avoid negative opinions. Just
no, you can go. I have some very negative opinions. I don't mind talking.
I'm not a Bill Maher fan for sure.
Are people interested in hearing about the strike? Are you all?
Yeah.
You aware of it?
Just by a show of hands, who wants to hear us badmouth some people? Everybody. Yeah.
I'll tell you, your connection to this business. I can't remember a time where the fans drove our industry more. How much influence the fans have because there are very few movies where at least one person has to have a cape on at all times. You know? And it's always been, cinema has always been youth driven. But now in particular, there seems to be cause and effect, the anger over Flash. I didn't see Flash. And incidentally, I can't be really articulate about that genre, but Flash didn't do well.
No.
Yeah. And I don't know if you've seen this. I've been doing this for 30 years. The day it came out, and days before it came out, because word had already gotten out on the internet that it wasn't going to succeed, and that it was getting negative reactions. The studio started reacting immediately. Projects were pulled, and I'd never seen anything like that. That's only been occurring for the past couple of years. I think that's sort of Zack Snyder sort of getting a do-over.
that whole fiasco, yeah.
And it's like, well, we just paid a lot of money, and while it was better and got a much better response, we're still in a financial hole. So congratulations to you. And why did we do that? I suppose. But that's just making movies. With the strike now, it's see, I'm one where it's very painful. It's very painful. We not only don't get to work. Which is really it's very hard, and the opportunities to get work since the pandemic started with these auditions, we just make tapes of ourselves in our homes and send them in, so we don't even get to engage anymore. I mean, auditioning is an important part of the process. You get to meet the director. You get to he gets to see what it's like to direct you. Usually they have you do a scene 1 or 2 times, and he'll give you a direction, or she'll give you a direction. And we don't have that anymore. It's just this dead medium. And because of that, I guess it's kind of good for the producers, because instead of them having to be in a room, they can stay home with their socks on and put something on, we'll just watch auditions on TV. But what it means is that pain in the neck of having to go to the audition was part of the ceremony of it. And they would see anywhere from 30 to 60 people, and then narrow. Now, people send in auditions. They're looking at 600 auditions. It's been 3 years, and if I don't get something, I don't hear back. And there's no actor getting feedback from a casting director is important. I saw this, didn't see that. So you can get a sense of where you are and what you're doing. That's gone. So being an actor existentially on several levels has changed. And then the strike happened. Every 4 or 5 years we get to renegotiate our contracts, and the technology in the world is moving so quickly that it just so happens every 3 or 4 years there's this new device that directly affects the structure of how we're paid. A few years ago it was DVDs. A few years ago it was cable. And then it was DVDs. We want a piece of the DVDs. Well, we don't want you to have a piece of the DVDs. Okay, we're going to go on strike. That was 1988. And then the world changes. Try to find a DVD now. You have to come to a place like this. But all the stores closed in like a day. I have a friend, he's one of the great magazine editors of New York. He edited Rolling Stone, Details, Billboard magazine. And one day they were like, yeah, we're just going to have magazines online. And he went, okay, then you're out of a job. And he he does podcasts now. 30-year career of being Perry White, essentially. And he's just trying to come up with podcast ideas. Really strange how quickly things move. Now, as an actor, being an actor now means if you don't have a theatrical gig, which is the one thing we're allowed to do, something like this we're allowed to do, then I basically see other actors, and it's important to do that. I think if actors don't work a lot, even actors who work a lot don't work a lot. So every day there's a bunch of actors who are walking in circles, literally, at least finally, literally, and so you go and see them, and it's hard. So when this thing happened, is everybody following? Has anybody followed the news? Or we can talk about other stuff too.
We'll get there.
About this. Glad we got rid of them. Okay,
everybody
now let's start
for entertainment. Surprise! It's educational.
Anyway, I don't want to be a drag, but there was a big reaction to Drew Barrymore bringing her talk show back, and Bill Maher bringing his talk show back, and I didn't know much about labor, and I never took my union too seriously, and I'm SAG-Aftra, and all I knew was I had my health insurance when I paid my dues. Well, over the pandemic, if you didn't get enough work and you didn't pay your dues, you had no insurance. And there was about a 3-month period where if something happened to me, I would have been wiped out. And then I got a gig, and it was enough to at least make insurance. But it's a very expensive union.
Yeah.
I think it was the correct time to strike because the technology has now changed. And a lot of what has changed feels like it's going to be permanent. You never know. But there's some of the horrible things they wanted to do famously. So if you were an extra, they bring you in for 1 day, scan your picture, and then say goodbye. You get 1 day's pay.
Yeah.
And you might be in the next 250 movies.
Here's your $50. We're going to use you forever.
It's disgusting. And that's the least of it. It's streaming. The last thing I did was a Netflix series called Sex Life. And I was in I did the season, and I was in 4 out of the 6 episodes. With streaming, if it was on television, we live off of our residuals. We need our residuals. And the way it was structured is you get paid again and then in decreasing amounts, but you get paid as it's distributed all over the world, and you can follow it very closely. And if you do a movie that sells to cable, like all of a sudden you'll get a big check and you go, oh God, this thing opened in France now, or some country I've never heard of. We count on those things. And I'm talking about the middle range people, not the marquee names, not your Tom Cruise or your Tom Hanks or whatever. And there's a lot of the people in our union, they're hyphenate members. They'll have their foot in the 1 foot. Hollywood rewards success by inviting you into the club. Now you're sitting at the table, and they make you a producer. You're a producer now. And they invite you to all the big things. You get all the awards. There's an evening, blah, blah, blah. And I was always suspicious of the entire thing. It's an operation, and it's a business, and it plays on people like that. If you are invited into that big club, what's really happening is the big machine is making you a vital organ. And they tell you what's the most a director can get. Final cut of what? Of a movie that needs to be pre-approved by, everybody in the studio, that's going to get tested to death, that's going, there's no such thing as a final cut. And so you become part of an organ, and then after you're done being stoned on how successful you are and everybody talking about how brilliant your films are, you realize, I don't have the freedom to be an artist anymore. I can't do it. The same goes for actors. You're bought and sold. And if those are the terms, those are the conditions, and they are, if you want to be in the big leagues and not just, you can also just do regional theater. People do that. But if you want to be in movies and television and you're shooting for a level of success, it's best to be conscious of what that means. When you have a certain amount of success, you're not rewarded. They tell you it's called the Academy Rewards, but what it really is a fly trap that brings you in, and you wake up and you're a primary organ.
Yeah, I think the lure is like, oh, well, you're famous now. Congratulations, we made you famous.
And a lot of people go there to be famous. I have a friend who's very famous. And we were walking down the street one day, and it would bother, I said, what is it like? And she says, it's really fun until you realize you can't turn it off.
Yeah.
She said, it takes about 8 months, then you realize, oh God, it's not going to stop. But she said, watch this. Now, we were walking down a New York City street, and she shifted her head a little bit, and nobody knew who she was. It happens all the time. You walk by celebrities all the time. It's like, this is like, you have no idea whether you're walking past a killer or a CIA guy, an agent. And sometimes you might be standing right next to the most famous person in the world who's done this thing. It's a survival technique. It's really weird. It's almost like a dark magic or something.
I kind of in that category, and this, me telling a name-dropping story, but I was in LA like 8 years ago at this point. I was in, a pretty well-known comic shop in LA. It's me and my wife, we're walking around, it's like the day after Christmas, and I see a guy walk in, looks disheveled. Like you wouldn't expect, just another normal guy. I was wearing a shirt with like Wolverine on it. He walks past me. He's like, "Oh, I dig that shirt." Hey, thanks, man. Great. He walks on. He's with his kid. Still just me and my wife are walking to the store. My wife starts talking to him and the kid. They're talking about a game, not thinking anything of it. And I'm just kind of listening in the background. I'm thinking, this person's voice sounds very familiar. Why do I know this person's voice? It took me about 30 minutes, no, not even 30, like 30 seconds to realize, why am I talking to Jack Black right now? Jack Black just complimented me on my shirt. Like you're saying, you just wouldn't, you don't expect it. You don't realize you talk to people like that all the time. And it's weird.
That's another thing is it's a nice surprise is that there are a lot of people, I mean, the reason this is happening is because there are a lot of people who aren't nice who are at the helm.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't wrap my mind around somebody making $700 million a year and then having a problem with people just wanting to put food on their table and they literally wouldn't feel it.
Yeah.
But they're beholden to shareholders. I mean, it's more complicated than just turning one person into Darth Vader. But enough about the end of the industry.
We're done haranguing you with Strike Talk.
Talk about something exciting.
Absolutely, man. Like I said before, I always like to start at the beginning when we're talking about stuff. We talked about this a couple months ago. You actually, a lot of folks I talked to kind of just, I went to an audition, I ended up getting a part, and then it just kind of went from there. You were actually kind of born into the theater, if I'm remembering correctly. Is that?
Yes, my mother gave birth during a performance. No, my mom was the president of Harrison Players. Anybody know where Harrison, New York is? In Westchester. I grew up in Westchester. I grew up in Rhode
Right.
Yeah.
That's like 50% of the audience.
We live right there.
You can literally blink. You don't even have to raise your hand. I'll see it. But anyway, it was the Harrison Players, so my first experience was working in community theater. I played a newsboy in Gypsy, but I had to audition for it, and my brother was in it too, and I just loved it. And still, to this day, if I'm on the set or anywhere, on a stage, on a set, I just feel so lucky to be there, which is the way I felt as a kid. Like, I couldn't believe I was getting to hang out with grown-ups. At that point, they were dentists and, lawyers who and I thought, wow, they must really love this because they just put in a full day's work and now they're doing this for 3 hours. I mean, I'm doing it because my mom's here. I don't come here. I got to eat at 11:30. And, but that wasn't why I was doing it. I loved it. And so, it also took care of another problem, which is people who get nasty or unhappy on a set. And everybody has a right to have a bad day or be frustrated by something, and that's a different thing. But the expectation that everything is going to be right just because you're making a lot of money or you're in the catbird seat, nothing ever lasts. Be good to the people on your way up, because you're sure going to see them, hopefully not going down, but nobody stays up the entire time.
Yeah, you will run into somebody again at some point.
Even if you do, even if you are one of the lucky people to maintain a trajectory up there, you make no mistake, that person is there because they've hired a bunch of other people to punch people off the mountain. It's not natural to be that well known, and it's just the commercial apparatus is not set up for it. So if they're backing you and you're a star for that long, you obviously have something tremendous to offer. But you're only allowed a certain amount of failures before you lose some rank, and so in order to maintain the quality of script and to have everybody work as hard as you've got to be so driven. And at the same time, there are other people trying to sneak in the back door and push you off the mountain.
Yeah.
That's why I'm just perfectly happy. I wish things would open up again and we could work. I wish we could get past this strike, which is necessary. And the secret to a union is unity. And so people have been asking me, why are you guys so mad at Drew Barrymore or Bill Maher or anybody who's going back to do it? It's not mad. It's a philosophy because the truth is, part of their argument is there are makeup people who aren't benefiting from the strike. And why can't they go? They have to just be on strike and lose money just because parties that they have nothing, to do with or can't work it out. I understand that, but part of it's almost like going to war. People don't understand the mentality. When you're going up against, the AMPTP, that's like going up against the United States. Like it's like you're a small country going up against the United States. Probably not going to work out really well. So what you have is what the Vietnamese had, and eventually ran us out of Vietnam, which is tunnels, and they were tough. There are certain civilizations that have just bred tougher people, and if you started out as a writer, started out as an actor, then on some level, unless it's something really unnatural has happened, like you've got a movie star father, or were legacied into a show as a writer, but by and large, you understood, at least for a little while, what it was like to, live off of ramen and have an uncertainty and what your odds were. And you learned, you were younger, and a lot of people left. I clamped down on things like a bulldog. I'm not going anywhere, and that's what I think. Those are the kinds of people who stick around are. And I don't think that the PTA counted on that quality.
And well, that's said that thing that leaked out that we're just going to wait until they need to pay their rent or whatever.
Yeah, that was a purposed leak.
Yeah,
that was supposed to register as the click of a shotgun, and
it backfired big time. Yeah.
It pissed us off, and it burnished our resolve. We're not going anywhere. This has to change, and so. But the only power you have is unity, because the only thing our only defense against people who have much, much more money is we're not going to do it. And we're already weakened because, I don't know how many of you people know it, but when Oppenheimer opened, it was their opening night. It was covered internationally, and the minute they found out about the strike, they were literally, someone was in the middle of a sentence, they were taking pictures, they all raised their hand, turned their back, and walked out as a cast. And I thought, now I understand why people love Les Miserables. Now, I get it. That's incredible. And can you imagine if the marquee names in our business had done that? There's a reason. I don't know if you read about Tom Hanks, or I don't want to name any people, but people who, if they were on the picket line and had said to the studios, yeah, when every one of my brothers goes back to work, that's when I'll go back to work, but don't give me a call.
Yeah.
And if this sinks the business, it's on you. That's what I want, and we don't have that. We have the core of our union, which is most of our union, who are day to day. We live day to day. It's a regular job. It's feast or famine. I get a series, and all of a sudden you're making a lot. If the series runs, you become wealthy. If it doesn't, you slowly but surely come back to I'm okay, but I'm not. It's not like this strike. I just lost another house. It's like, how much do you need? And if it's that bad, Bill Maher, Drew Barrymore, give them some of your money. These people are worth hundreds of millions of dollars. The man bought the Mets. You can't pay your writers for a couple of months?
Anyway.
And the Mets suck. And I'm a Met fan. And even the Mets would have said, yeah, we suck. Well, I don't know, whatever.
I'm gonna try to reel us back into the world of movies here for a second. I every now and again, I will, as a lover of movies, an absolute lover of movies, I will have to admit to a movie crime. I have not seen Cinderella Man until this week. If you have not seen Cinderella Man, I highly, highly recommend it. Craig plays heavyweight champion Max Baer, and you are an absolute beast in that movie. I absolutely love that performance. My favorite scene in the whole movie is the restaurant, where you're just kind of talking to Russell Crowe, and you're you're being the smiley guy, but you're also being kind of a dick to him. You're giving it to him like, oh, your wife's pretty, really pretty. Like, shame, you're really pretty to be a widow, like stuff like that. I love that performance. I thought you were so great in that. What kind of prep went into that? I mean, not just physically, but also to get into the mind space of like a Max Baer, this person who's just a physical beast who literally beat men like to death in the ring. How did you get there? What was that process like?
Well, I'm not like a method actor, so it wasn't like I didn't want to go crazy and be like,
Pretend to be Max Baer for like 6 months.
Max Baer was truly delightful guy. I mean, he was like Dean Martin charming, and they became very good friends after the fight.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but the story, the bones of it are true. It's just that Max Baer they did find out while we were shooting, they added that scene, they did find out he did visit him in a restaurant. He did say, "You got kids," because Max Baer had killed 2 people in the ring.
Yeah.
He had this powerful right. He grew up in Livermore, California, sledgehammering cattle on a farm. And he had this right hand. And so he'd look, it was 9:45. He had a dinner reservation, time to knock a guy down, and he'd just pull that right out. And, 2 guys died, one the day after, one right in the ring. And so he said, the true story was he went to the restaurant to talk to him and say, I don't want you to do this. Because I think Max Baer felt like he was walking around with a rifle connected to his arm.
Yeah.
Very uneasy. I spoke to Norman Mailer, who had come up to visit, who's a big fight fan, writer, if you haven't heard of him, a terrific writer. And I said, have you known anybody who killed somebody in the ring? Yeah. He didn't tell me who it was. I said, how did it change him? He goes, you wouldn't be able to tell. But Norman Mailer was a boxer. He said, I could tell. A boxer would be able to tell, and he knew. But he didn't have anything else to do. He had nowhere else to go. But he knew that his days were numbered. He killed a guy in the ring, and there was just, if you hold back, it's all instinct. It's crazy. Boxing's crazy. You have to relax, despite the fact that somebody's trying to hit you. But if you're not relaxed, it's going to be worse. So it felt a lot like what acting is. Everybody's looking at you. And you have to act like nobody's looking at you and you're completely comfortable in a scene. And if you look out at the audience or into the camera, you're dead. You yell cut. It's that same thing. I just there's this interesting fusion between the two. But he was a really nice guy. For the prep, I think I don't know whether it was on purpose or not, but Russell and I had a begrudging respect for one another. It certainly didn't come off of me. I'm happy to work with anybody, and it's all pretend to me. But there was it was a lack of warmth, I should say, and that was enough to sort of pick up on. And then we had 2 months up there before we shot, so I just kept on training. And when we'd shoot scenes, there was just, but every day we were putting the fight together. We were trying so hard to choreograph it. They fired the fight choreographer. Ron Howard shot all the fights in order because he wanted to teach himself how to shoot a fight, so that by the time he got to the final fight scene, he'd know. And I think it's one of the finest fight scenes ever on film.
Yeah, no joke. It is. Again, I'm surprised I haven't seen it. It is one of the best boxing movies I have ever seen.
I'm really proud of it. But the preparation, I can tell you 2 things, and I actually can connect this to where we are. It started with an Alex Ross. Does everybody know the artist Alex Ross?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant cartoonist. He did I wasn't so aware of him. One of the first things I saw was a painting that he did called The Joker Close Up.
Yes.
And it's just the Joker. You can look it up on your phones. It's just the Joker, like
It's got the big grin. Like
Yeah.
it looks kind of like the Jack Nicholson Joker. It's got
The thing I loved about I was going to say Kubrick, but that's what it reminded me of, and it's just a great shot. And I'd never seen anything about the Joker that scared me. There was Jack Nicholson's didn't scare me. It always seemed like kind of I get it. He's a clown and he's a killer. Right? It's interesting, but I'd never seen anything where I just Jesus. This picture was so chilling. And the way Alex Ross paints is he works off of real models, and that Joker's actually his own face. It's a variation on his own face. And knowing that, and then having that picture, for me, I just thought, whatever I'm feeling, there's a moment in the fight where I realize I've got to end this thing now. Like, I can't control this the way I thought I would.
Yeah.
Max, they say Max didn't really train for the fight because he wasn't worried. And this guy came in hot, and he's like, gee, and he kept moving him around to his right, so he couldn't have his right. When it's without his right, he's just a guy, and just a guy. And nobody had ever done this to him. He kept driving him around. And we used the actual choreography for the actual fight. So I got to feel like how awkward it was, like terrible. The bell rings, and there's just a moment where all his charm, because he's playing to the crowd, he really was like Dean Martin, but he realizes I gotta stop this. He's gonna take my championship.
I'm in trouble.
This guy, this punk is gonna take it all away. And I knew, and I had a personal experience. If I think about it, makes me, I remember how angry and offended I was. That's part of what it is. I'm not a sense memory guy, but God, I can't stand bullies. I can't stand them. And seeing somebody else get bullied or being bullied myself and really not having the words, feeling stunned. I just stayed in that place, and they turned the camera on, and whatever happened, you can see when I look up. And it was totally honest. I looked right across the thing, right in Russell was in his seat. I looked right at him, and I was going to kill him, and that's the way because I put myself back in that place where I always wished, why didn't I punch that guy? It's right here.
Yeah.
And after 3 months, it took us, well, not 3 months, it took us about a month and a half to shoot the fight. And like I said, Russell wasn't going to make it easy. I mean, he's probably doing a similar thing, but to much greater degree. But I never asked. We never had a conversation. And essentially, you're dancing more than boxing. You're not hitting each other. But everything has to be coordinated just so. But it was tense between us. And to this day, I don't know why. I just think it could be chemistry, or it could have just been he preferred it that way.
Yeah.
But either way, all these years later, I look back on it and I just think, well, that's Ginger and Fred. I'm really proud. That's whatever got us there. But I do know that in those moments that were more frustrating, it was fun. It was kind of a gift to be able to look at him and go, I kind of would like to hit you as hard as I could. And you can't learn to box in 6 months, but I trained hard for 6 months in Brooklyn, New York. And my trainer, I hit his hand, he goes, he's Cuban. He goes, what the fuck you doing? Hit my hand like that. I go, I'm boxing. He goes, no, your mouth. And he taught me how to really, because you want to hit someone hard, you don't throw a hard punch. It's a
Emotion, not the strength.
emotion. Like, it actually looks like that, He goes, do you know that you punch someone in the heart, you'll kill them? So, all through the thing, I would be taking shit, just going, don't push, I don't, and of course I wouldn't. But having that in your pocket, it gave me the cojones to sort of embrace this part. And the happy ending for that, unfortunate phrase, I should say, happily, I wasn't allowed to talk to his son, Max Baer Jr., who played Jethro on the Beverly Hillbillies.
Yeah, that's right.
Because they didn't want me to be influenced by family, because they're basically paying, he's a bad guy in the movie, historically he is. So he saw the movie and he was upset with the portrayal of his father. But he gave me great compliments, which I appreciated. And I think about 5 years ago, I just looked at the phone. And I picked up the phone, I got his number, and I called him. I said, Mr. Bear, it's Craig Bierko. Bierko, you son of a bitch, how the hell are you? And we talked for 2.5 hours. He was the most delightful guy. I thought, actually, I feel like I'm talking to his dad. I wasn't even thinking. I grew up watching him as Jethro. I just thought, I'm talking to Max Baer. We've spoken a couple of times. He's like 100. And he's an odd dude. He's really colorful, but I'm really great that we got to have the connection. He didn't take it personally. I said, I had issues with my dad, but if somebody made a movie and my dad was a character and they only showed the bad parts, I'd have a problem with it. He said, so you get it. I said, I get it. Plus I saw footage nobody will ever see of your dad, like archived footage. And he's just the most charming, funny, literally like, it looks like, yeah, soon there's going to be Dean Martin. That's what she's so funny and charming, and there was nobody like that in that era. It's the 30s. And anyway, so I'm glad I had that opportunity. I'm glad you saw it. I'm glad you liked it. And if you haven't seen it,
Highly recommend.
it's just a lovely story. It's very life affirming. And right now, I think we all need that. It's a hard time, isn't it?
100%. By the end of the movie, I mean, even if you're not familiar with boxing, you're invested in this Braddock story.
Oh, it's not a boxing movie. It's a movie about art.
Yeah. You're there, 100%. Sticking with movies, another movie that I love that you're in, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Yeah, well, I mean, I'm thinking a lot of people are expecting, oh, that must have been a crazy movie set. You know, it's this crazy drug movie. I'm not expecting that, but what was that like? I mean, that's a challenge, not because it's a crazy drug movie, but I think because a lot of people thought that was an unfilmable story. I mean, if you've read the book,
a lot of people still feel it is.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I've seen it, and I had such a strong reaction in college. I read the book in like 2 sittings, and I was literally vibrating after. I was like, wow, that was something. And I just thought, I don't need to try any of that. I don't need to go there. And I loved it. I loved it so much. And then I saw Brazil. Like, Terry Gilliam actually came to my college, showed the movie, and talked to us. Oh. And I just thought, oh my God, I'm sitting this close to a python, and the movie, and Brazil really knocked me out. And I said, that's the only guy in the world who could ever direct Fear and Loathing. I literally had that thought. And however many, 12 years later, 15, whatever it was.
It's happening.
I go into his office, I read for Lacerda, and he goes, yeah, let's do it. And I dyed my hair blonde, and I'm up there, and he's doing his Terry Gilliam thing where he's forcing a lens up your nose, and and Johnny Depp was really great, really kind. Benicio del Toro was just doing his own thing, you know. But then that's not talking to him, and then in the elevator he's swinging this Bowie knife around. You know, it was kind of terrifying. I loved being up there and working with Terry Gilliam because I'm an artist. I was always drawn to him because of that, and as a python.
Yeah.
The first day I was up there, I sat down at a table like this to eat lunch. And we were in the middle of a desert, and he's dressed like a sheik. He literally has a sheik costume on, and it's not ironic. That's how hot it was. And he sees me sitting alone, and I steal a few glances. He sits down, and he can just tell. I guess all the pythons can tell. He sits down. He goes, "Anything you want."
What sketch are you gonna ask me about?
I don't remember. I think I just asked about it.
Blocks, the swimming launches,
how he did all the animations, and how they, because I knew he was American and all that. He was so gracious, and I bumped into him again, and I love people who actually appreciate where they are. It means two things. It means they had an experience like I did with the Harrison Players, where I kind of grew up and I had this association with it that had nothing to do with money and power. But I also think it has to do with good parenting. So anybody out there who's a parent, just be a good parent. I mean, if you got one good parent, which I had one good parent, I feel like that sort of settled a lot for me. I can experience everything, even the harder times like this with the strike, because I watched my mother, have no job experience. My dad left. We're stuck. What's she gonna do? And she gets up and does what she has to do: go to work and put us through college. And she's a superhero, real superhero. And if you've got a parent like that, I think just give everything to your kids, and you'll never have to worry. It's example. I don't remember much that she said. I just remember she's still around. I'm not talking the past tense. She's 85, goes to Zumba 4 days a week. A cute little Zumba tushy. She's literally like, it's incredible. Are you a dad? I look at. I can already tell.
I don't know these kids. No.
I can already tell.
I was gonna say before I hog up all the time talking. Does anybody in the audience have questions? Anybody want to ask a question? Come on up.
Now, but do you want to let them up? Because we don't want the audience to look even thinner.
Yeah.
Don't get intimidated if you turn around.
I just want to see, was there truth to the rumor that you turned down the role for Chandler and Friends?
What happens? I know. I turned down Monica. No. It is true. It is true. You want to hear the story?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Because there's a book out and it doesn't tell it well, unfortunately. And I love Matthew, but that's not what happened. And I won't go through, bit by bit is kind of boring, but I had a deal at NBC, which is something they used to do. They pay you money up front, basically to keep you from auditioning.
We want to make something with you. We don't know yet.
We want to make something. We think you're great. We think you're good enough that we don't want ABC or anybody else. So here's some money, and then you spend the rest of the year, talking to writers that they're in business with, and it was one. I can't tell you how many times I heard pitches for shows that were like, "Well, he's a cop, but he's kind of a cowboy cop. Doesn't play by the rules." I'm like, "Oh God." Well, he's a dad, kind of a rock and roll dad. It's like, no. And then I got 2 scripts. One was a father who stays at home. They're both sitcoms, both being directed. I'm blanking on his name, but the guy who directs Cheers and directed a bunch of friends. James Rose.
Rose, yeah.
Brilliant man. So he's going to direct both of them. And first of all, I said, why do I have to? There's 2 scripts. One was called Best Friends, and the other was called 6 of 1. 6 of 1 was the one that was about 6 people in New York. Best Friends was about a stay-at-home father who was a writer and had a 6-year-old girl. And they found this girl. They looked all over the United States. They found this girl who was so funny and so untouched by the business. I mean, if she's still an actress, she's probably a biologist somewhere. She was brilliant. But she was like this little adult. And as soon as I met her, I felt comedy partner. And the script was funny too. And I liked the guy who wrote the script. I went in and I had read Friends, and I thought it was funny. When you read these scripts, nobody tells you that one's not going to go. This one's going to replace Christianity. Which one, Nobody tells you that. But I read it, and my eye went to Ross. I thought, I'm right for Ross. No, we got a guy playing Ross, David Schwimmer. And I went, oh, I went to school with David Schwimmer. That's great. That's great casting. So everyone, why don't you come in for Joey? Came in for Joey. Terrible. I guess that's it. And I had already auditioned for and gotten the other one, Best Friends, which I really liked, by the way. So, why don't you come in for Chandler? And I went, you don't have to be nice. Because at that point, they were looking at, it was going to be people like Andy Dick. They wanted like a Woody Allen type. This was going to be the guy who just was making wisecracks and was just never had luck with the ladies. They wanted a young Woody Allen. And I came in and I auditioned, and I remember the moment I got it. It was just the way I said a line. The scene was funny, and it was the way I said the line, and they all perked up. I absolutely knew it. They said, here's the thing. We want him to be like Woody Allen, but he doesn't look like Woody Allen. But inside, he's like Woody Allen. I said, that's interesting. That sounds great. And I had a week to decide, and I was ripping my skin off. My poor girlfriend at the time. And I just thought, and here are my honest thoughts. And I don't know how many of you read Matthew's book, but he tells the story. What I did was, when I first got the script, I was very good friends, and still, with Matthew and Hank Azaria. And I took them out to breakfast. I said, I found our show. Me, Ross, Hank, you, Joey, Matt, you, Chandler. And we read the script, not out loud, but we all read the script. It was funny. Yeah, that's one of the ones we're looking at. Nobody said, well, do this one. Nobody. And my agents at the time said, don't do this. It's a ripoff of Seinfeld, which, by the way, it was. It felt like a ripoff of Seinfeld. It was funny, but I just thought, I would wait for Thursday night for Seinfeld.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
it's like Seinfeld with like
and this wasn't
edges
that.
done.
And it was just to be the guy making wisecracks. I mean, I think this will go, but I feel good about this other show. And as an actor, I had this real strong feeling of like, I want to do this. I do this all the time. I do it with these guys. So I just went the other way. It was that simple. And it was strange because my show didn't go. But we did the taping. Matthew and Hank were at my taping. It went really well. I'm very proud of the pilot. It didn't fill their needs. They probably had something else that was that kind of relationship. It comes down to that. Because the show was really, really good. But, you know, think that it was, that's it. And for the thing that's changed, the thing that changed for me immediately was I would walk around town and I'd literally walk into restaurants and you could see people go. I was like, are you kidding? And a lot of people were like, if you've been in this business 20 years, you do realize Al Pacino passed on Han Solo, and it goes like this every once in a while. And by the way, there were other actors who passed on other roles in Friends. Many actors, they don't tell you these stories, and I won't either. By the way, I never told the story before. My rule was I'll never tell this story. I wouldn't have answered your question before Matthew tells it first.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you for sharing.
And, well, I've told it, and I've written some stuff about it, and people want me to write, you know, a book that would be not centered around that, but that it would involve that. And if I can find the right way to do it, because the thing that bothered me the most was people going, I'm like, no, the way I look at life is we're all fated to have an experience. I think looking back at my life at that point, I think I had a relationship and what I wanted from the business that somebody put it very well, somebody who is very spiritual and I feel very connected to and has never been wrong about these things, said, I think it was your time to survive not doing Friends and Matthew's time to survive doing Friends.
That's it.
And we'll talk again in 10, 20 years and see where we are. And I would say at the beginning it was strange just because I didn't like people assuming that I was devastated over news. It's literally happened to every actor.
Yeah.
If you're on a level of success, you're gonna have to make choices, and one thing might spring off, and you know, and the fact that Al Pacino still goes, could have been Han Solo. It's like, yeah, you're Al Pacino. Who gives a shit? And I'm sorry, but they didn't have Italian people in space. So stupid. I can't. So, you know what the thing about Star Wars? And as a kid, I noticed this. I think I turned to my dad when I was 10. I was like, so it's a long time ago, galaxies far, far away, but everybody speaks English on every planet? He goes,
Hey, everybody
"Shut up,
speaks
watch
basic."
Shut up, watch some an irritating kid. Anyway,
We're just about out of time, unfortunately. I don't think I've asked a fraction of the questions that I wrote down. I could literally do this all day, but we're unfortunately out of time. Thank you so much for sitting down with us, Craig. This has been amazing. Everybody, please, big round of applause for Craig Bierko. If you haven't stopped by his table yet, please head out, grab a picture, grab an autograph, hang out for a minute. He's entertaining, folks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for coming.